Hi, everyone, and welcome to The Foster Files, a podcast about animal rescue and welfare. My name is Kelly, and every week I talk about issues surrounding animals in this country and to the people who are passionate about making their lives better. This week, I'm speaking with Suzanne Gonzalez, the president and co-founder of Pennsylvania Voters for Animals. PAVFA is an all-volunteer organization committed to supporting candidates and elected officials who work to enact comprehensive and compassionate animal protection legislation in Pennsylvania. Hi, Suzanne. How are you today?
Hi, Kelly. Oh, I'm doing so well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me. It is such a pleasure to have you on. I am so excited to hear about all the work that your organization is doing for animals in Pennsylvania, which of course is my home state. But before we dive into that, why don't you tell me a little bit about the founding of the organization and how you guys got started?
I would love to. Thank you so much. And I was so excited to learn about your podcast and all the great work that you're doing, and also that you're in Pennsylvania. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. So Pennsylvania Voters for Animals, we do call it PAVFA for short. It's a mouthful. But so we are a 501c4 nonprofit, and I will talk a little bit about a 501c4 for your listeners. We're also nonpartisan, so everyone is welcome. We are focused on, as you did a great job introducing, we are focused on advancing stronger animal protection laws across the state of Pennsylvania. And I, along with three other animal advocates, actually, they always say they all knew me, but through all the work that we did over the years as individuals, rescuing animals, volunteering for shelters and rescues, we all came together and we said, wouldn't it be great if we formed an organization that could really focus on, without too many limitations, focus on advancing stronger animal protection legislation. And I want to give a shout out to Allie Taylor, who was on your podcast not too long ago from Voters for Animal Rights. I had learned of that organization, and I contacted Allie and I said, I love what you're doing. I love the model that you employ, like for your nonprofit. And she said, Suzanne, start a 501c4. She actually pointed me to an organization called Animal Defense Partnership, and they do pro bono legal work for animal protection or rescues, anything to do with animals. This organization was phenomenal, and they walked me through the 501c4 application process. So I have to thank Allie Taylor of Voters for Animal Rights in New York, as well as Animal Defense Partnership. They made it so easy. So we came together. We said, let's start this organization, and that was in 2023. We did get our IRS determination letter, so our happy letter, they call it, that we were granted a 501c4 status. And then we officially launched our organization in October of 2024. So we're basically a very new organization, new and growing, but we're all volunteer, and we are committed to advocating and supporting stronger animal protection legislation in Pennsylvania. And of course, I'll share more about that as we go on. But I do want to just, for your listeners, to share, what is a 501c4? We've all heard of 501c3 nonprofits.
Right.
But I didn't know what a 501c4 was. And basically, a 501c4 it's considered a social welfare organization, which provides a flexible platform for civic engagement, legislative advocacy, public policy influence. And, we need to make sure that our primary mission serves the community. So that's why we're basically a 501c4 is a social welfare organization. So some examples, as I mentioned, Voters for Animal Rights. We've all heard of like the Sierra Club. League of Women's Voters has a 501c4, as well as the ACLU. So they're just some examples of 501c4 organizations. The most important thing, I think, is the fact that a 501c4 really can advocate for legislative change without real limitations or boundaries. Like, we really can focus on driving legislative change. We can lobby. And what else is really cool about being a 501c4 is we can actually endorse candidates. So for 2026, this is going to be one of our projects that for the general election in PA, and we're going to focus on the state level election, we're going to be able to do a humane candidate survey so we can ask people running for PA General Assembly seats, so seats in the Senate, all of the House of Representatives will be up for election in 2026. So we're hoping that, everybody's going to respond to our survey and that we're going to be able to come out and publish our endorsements before the November 3rd election. And we're really excited about that because that is our main goal, is to let people know which candidates are really for animal protection. They're going to fight for animals and for their community as well. But so we're real excited about that. The other thing is that we also do education. That's part of a 501c4. So as part of our organization, we conduct quarterly webinars. We don't stick to the quarterly too well yet, but we will. So as an example, last year we did a webinar on including your companion animals in your estate planning. Like, how many people think about that? I had an attorney friend come on and she did an awesome job explaining how you can plan for your companion animals in your will and your estate planning. We also had Liz Cabrera-Holtz from World Animal Protection come on last year, and she did an incredible webinar on how each and every one of us can advocate for stronger legislation at the local ordinance level to protect animals that are sold in pet stores. And that actually is a passion area for PAVFA right now. It's like one of our main initiatives, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then we also had a humane officer come from Pennsylvania, SPCA, Nicole Wilson, who's the director of humane law enforcement. And she did a webinar on her organization, and it was fascinating. So we hope that, this year, 2026, we're going to have some really exciting webinars as well. So that's why when I'll talk a little bit more about how your listeners can follow us, they're free. They're open to anyone. So, it's a good way if you follow us to keep up with our webinars. The other thing we have on our website is it's called a Voice for Animals blog. And this is where we invite members of our community. We'd love to have you, Kelly, to write a blog about anything that has to do with animals, like, issues related to animals or legislation that might be pending or anything to your heart's content, as long as it's related to animals. We recently had Sarah Barnett from ACT Philly. She wrote, it's still up on our Voice for Animals blog, and it was her testimony at the dog breeding moratorium hearing in Philly.
That just happened.
It just happened. And
literally within the last month.
Yeah. And it was, we were there, Karen Winkler, who's a board member, and our treasurer, and myself, we went to Philadelphia. And it was so compelling. And we also met Cindy Bass, the city council woman who introduced the bill. And she actually wrote a blog that we posted on our social media accounts. And that's what we want to do. That's part of, our sharing with the community about issues, about legislation, and really informing people and also calling people to action. So, so they're just brief examples of some of the work that we've done as far as informing people. And we also were really committed at this point to keeping our Pennsylvania supporters apprised of state level animal protection level as well as local level ordinances. We have over 2,500 municipalities in Pennsylvania, and so that's a lot of municipalities to keep up with, but we have a lot of work to do, and that's why we're just so excited at everything that we have planned and what's ahead. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the really key functions for 501c4, it's not our main function, but it is a wonderful opportunity for us, is to be able to endorse political candidates and publicize their endorsements. So that's something that we will be doing.
So, can I ask you a question about that real quick?
Of
Because I have 20 questions from everything that you
course.
just said, but I want to start with that one. So, what are you asking in that humane survey that leads you to just consider endorsing? Because I think that it would be important for voters to know what is going behind, what information are you getting that's driving that endorsement. So I'm so curious about what you're asking those candidates.
That's just such a great question. And today I actually did have a meeting with one of our volunteers, and she's a retired psychologist, which I appreciate so much because we're developing the survey as we speak.
Oh, okay.
And so what the survey, it's not, of course, not near final, but what we're going to do is we're going to ask candidates. So they could be incumbents, so somebody that's already sitting in a House position or a Senate seat. And so they've already had the opportunity to, introduce legislation, animal protection legislation, as well as other bills, or co-sponsor sign on in support of animal protection legislation. There's also a PA Animal Protection Caucus that your listeners may not even be aware of. That it's comprised of 20 senators and 40 representatives, and it is bipartisan, which is awesome. But they are a dedicated group of PA representatives and senators who are working to advance animal protection. So, back to your question. So, the survey needs to be fair and balanced. That is absolutely 100% required. So when we ask questions, we have to consider that there may be people running for office that haven't held an office, that haven't had an
Mhm.
opportunity to introduce a bill. So the way we have to word the survey, and I'll just give an example, is would you support a bill? So you could say, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of the existing legislation. So you could say, would you support a pet sales ban bill like Victoria's law, where dogs, cats, and rabbits would be prohibited from sale in pet stores? And the answer could be yes, no, maybe. You
Mhm.
just I'm throwing that out there as an example.
Yeah, yeah, no, I
But
understand. Yeah.
yeah, and then to give them an opportunity to comment on, to further clarify their answer. But this will enable us to question them on their stance on existing legislation, or we could also ask them, would you support a bill that prohibits wildlife killing contests? Or a bill that prohibits traveling animal circuses? So that's, and one of the other things, it's just finding out from them, like, do you have any companion animals at home? Just
Uh-huh.
questions like that you could ask them, and we will ask them, but really focusing on either pending legislation or potential legislation.
Mhm.
And that's going to help us additionally as we go into the next legislative session, so 2027, 2028. That'll help us glean, from this information that we're gathering, where's like our strong support coming from. And then also, most importantly, it will help our community. People want to know. They want an easy way to see, like, who is the candidate that is really in support of
Mhm.
animals and animal protection. So that's really the goal of this survey. We're going to keep it real straightforward and simple, but we will be asking compelling questions because we can and we should.
Well, and what you're looking for is not straightforward and simple. Because, like, I think if we look at it, like, at the surface level, um, these people that are going for elected office or already in elective office, they're already to a certain degree really good at kind of like telling people what they want to hear, even if it maybe goes against what they believe deeply, right? And so that, first of all, that's a line that you have to walk. But then when you look at a state like Pennsylvania, it's so interesting that you brought up hunting, like wildlife game, because it's interesting because Pennsylvania, for those that don't know, I mean, I didn't even know you could get a day off of school for opening day of hunting season until I moved to Pennsylvania. So
Yeah.
Pennsylvanians take hunting uh,
Mm.
of wildlife very seriously.
Yeah.
And there's been a number of issues around things such as culling of deer, which,
Yeah.
for those that don't know, culling deer is one of the ways that state governments will try to control the whitetail population, because unfortunately, whitetail deer can explode into being a nuisance, because they're so prevalent and they do a really good job at breeding, and there can be an issue. But the culling of deer has always been a very hot button issue in the state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So I think it's so interesting that you're kind of approaching it and you're bringing up the hunting side of things, because you guys get to say, what you agree with and what you endorse. And the candidate doesn't necessarily know that, how they have to kind of come out and say, are they for these practices? Are they against them? And you guys get
Yeah.
to say whether or not that aligns with your
Yeah.
values as an
So
organization.
I do want to be clear though, it is wildlife. So it's really wildlife killing contests. So the killing, it's not hunting, it's killing.
Okay. I thank you
I
for
do
correcting
wanna
me.
be very clear on that, and I do have an example as we go forward of, legislation that, pertains to the, live target shooting of pigeons, and so I'll talk a little bit about that, but it's not so just to be clear, and that's just an example of wildlife
Yeah,
killing.
yeah.
Yeah. And there's also, as I said, like, would you consider legislation for, roadside zoos, for traveling animal circuses, which
Mhm.
all happen in Pennsylvania, just like
I know.
animal killing contests, which
Mhm.
um, some, from the research that I've read and, literature that I've also read, even some hunters do not advocate for wildlife killing contests because they don't consider that hunting. They don't consider that a
Right.
sport. So it is
Right.
different. That I do want to
Right.
differentiate that. Um,
Right.
but to answer your question, the other part of the methodology will be is if someone has been, in office, we will look at their voting record. So
Mm.
I will share without naming names because that's not fair. I mean, there are members of the Animal Protection Caucus who have actually voted on bills that don't help animals. So we need to look at that too. We need to look at
Mm-hmm.
their voting record, or they may have abstained. They may not have sponsored any animal protection bills. So there is a lot that goes into the methodology behind this candidate endorsement survey. So it's not something that we're going to take lightly, but it has to be fair. It has to be unbiased. And
Mm-hmm.
that information, then, our endorsements will be publicized. And then, of course, we're always going to be available for people if they have questions, because we're not going anywhere. So, but we're really excited about this opportunity because people want it. People do, and they deserve it. Pennsylvania voters deserve to know, how their legislators have voted and how their candidates are, what their intentions are. So, and we hope to deliver on that and help.
It sounds like right now, because obviously the midterms are coming up.
Yeah.
A lot of people are focusing on the midterms and they're incredibly important. Um, beyond an actual like election cycle, how are you guys going to decide what issues you want to focus on? Because truly there's no end to how many issues you could be working on, but certainly there's an end to resources and
So
availability.
that is such an important question, Kelly. And thank you so much for asking that. As we were coming together, as a board, what we did was we painstakingly identified issues that we felt were um, really urgent, um, and to be just transparent,
Mhm.
attainable.
Right.
So, we didn't want to just, you know, pie in the sky. I mean, we do have some long term um, legislation that probably won't happen in my lifetime. I mean, I'm just being very honest with you. But there are the ones that we've picked for our 6 priorities, and your listeners can actually go to our website and I will cover off on our 6 priorities. But
Mhm.
we, as a collective, again, coming from all different, animal shelter volunteers, animal rescuers. I've actually rescued animals, myself over the years, fostered, adopted. So we have all varying experience, but we have a wealth of experience between the 4 of us coming together. We also have a veterinarian on our board now, Dr. Melissa Resnick, who is incredible. And so, she lends her perspective. But when we came up with these 4 initiatives, it really was, what do we think is the most urgent, the most impactful, and what's also attainable? Let's be realistic.
Mhm.
So, the number one priority for us is, and you'll see it on our website, is to end live animal sales in retail and online pet stores. And the rationale behind that is, and believe me, I did not realize what I realize now over the years. All animals, or most animals sold in retail pet stores, come from commercial breeding operations. So,
Right.
AKA puppy mills. We all know, at least in Pennsylvania, we know what a puppy mill is. And
Right.
Pennsylvania, as at Lancaster County, is seen as the puppy mill
Puppy mill
capital of the
capital of the
East.
United States.
Of the East,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
And so that is not at least I don't think it's a reputation that we want to have for our wonderful state. So
No.
we decided as a group, after doing our due diligence, visiting pet stores, seeing it firsthand. I've also, and I'll talk a little bit more about the rescue that I volunteer for. Um, I've been to puppy mills in Pennsylvania. I've seen them firsthand, and I've fostered a dog that came from a breeding operation in Pennsylvania, and so I've seen firsthand the suffering, and I've seen the opportunity, and so we, as our number one initiative, we do hope to end the sale of animals in retail pet stores. Online pet stores is a long-term goal. Like, we know that's a lot more effort, but we also, through even this conversation today, it gets people to think about, people I didn't realize. I will be so honest, and I always am about, I didn't know. I did not know that there were fish mills and bird mills and reptile mills and amphibian mills. I did not know. But once I found out, I thought, I have to do something. So for
Mhm.
us, we actually had a win in October, or it was actually September of 2025. It was our very first local ordinance work and our attempt at, we went to the city of Easton in Pennsylvania, and
Mhm.
they had an existing pet sales ban ordinance for dogs, cats, rabbits, and guinea pigs, and that was enacted in 2023. So we went to them last year, and we asked them if they would be open to amending that existing ordinance to include all animals. And so on September 10th, 2025, the city of Easton voted on expanding their ordinance. And they did make a concession, but they did include, so their bill, or their current ordinance includes all mammals, all reptiles, all amphibians, and birds. And that is a precedent-setting piece of legislation for Pennsylvania.
That's
So
amazing.
we are going to keep working. We do have some, we have some things underway. Again, as I shared, like, we have 2,500 municipalities in Pennsylvania. There are 15 pet sales ordinances in Pennsylvania. Most are pet sale bans on dogs and cats, or dogs, cats, and rabbits. There are a few that are dogs, cats, and rabbits, and guinea pigs, but this City of Easton ordinance is, like, as I said, precedent setting for the state of Pennsylvania. So with that, we're also supporting state level legislation, and you may have heard about a bill called Victoria's Law. It's House Bill 1816, and there's a Senate version of Victoria's Law, which is 1190. And Victoria's Law will prohibit the sale of dogs, cats, and rabbits in retail pet stores in Pennsylvania. So I do want to let your listeners know, I mean, this is a bill that has been introduced over, several legislative sessions. And disappointingly, it is not advanced. So we're trying again, 2025, 2026 legislative session. And this bill we already have 8 states that have a similar Victoria's Law in place. So, we would be following suit with other states that have taken this initiative to protect animals.
Mhm.
And the other piece of this that is so, it's so compelling when we think about how, and we hear about our local shelters and rescues being inundated with
Mhm.
surrenders, with strays, with animals that are living out, homeless. And people I don't blame anyone, because I always say, like, people don't know. They don't understand the complexities of care, the cost of care when they adopt an animal or buy an animal. And so everybody has different reasons why they're surrendering or why they can't care for their animals anymore. But we've got to help prevent this at this point in time, just like the Philadelphia moratorium, the 3-year moratorium on it's unlicensed breeding. I don't want to say backyard breeding. It's technically unlicensed breeding.
Mhm.
So we've got to do something. And this is an opportunity for us to follow suit with these 8 other states that have done this. And it is something that people want. And right now, it's the House bill is sitting with Consumer Protection, the Consumer Protection Committee. There was a hearing on February 24th. And to date, at least to my knowledge, there has been no vote on it. And then the Senate bill, which was recently introduced, that is sitting with Agriculture and Rural Affairs. So I do want people to know if it is something that they're interested in supporting, they can contact their legislators. They can contact their PA senator, they can contact their representative, or they can send us an email and I will send them an action alert that they can complete. It's pretty easy to do. So, and I'll give you that info, the email contact later. But these are just examples of some of the things. This is one initiative where there is stuff going on, and every one of us, if we feel compelled to do so, can get involved and we can make a
Mhm.
difference. So I want to stop just to, if you have any questions, because I'll just keep going.
Well, I mean, I guess I just wonder. One of the things that Allie said to me that resonated with me when she and I spoke was it's so much harder to ban something after it's already happening. And she said the reason is because there's an economy around it. So I guess I'm just wondering, like, I kind of have two questions. In relationship to what's happened in the city of Easton, one, did they see any real tangible positive results from their initial ban? And did that, help them fuel adding additional animals to it? And then two, are they getting pushback from pet stores about losing that economy? And let me be clear, my question is not coming from a place where I disagree with the legislation because I wholeheartedly agree with it. I'm just curious about the other side of the argument.
These are all questions that have to be asked. So I do, and I should have said, um, when I was sharing that information, the city of Easton does not have uh, any pet stores that sell live animals. So this was truly a preemptive or
Okay.
preventative bill. So,
Okay.
but to answer your question, because it is so important for people to understand, and I have done the work, so I do understand the potential impact. I have to know both sides. I have to. So
Right.
because there were so many questions coming from, and rightfully so, from the city council members. And one of the biggest concerns was if a pet store comes in and wants to sell animals, like, will that be a deterrent um, to them? And here, what's really interesting, Kelly, is that there are data that are available to all of us that show that pet stores that, even if they stop selling live animals, it only comprises, if they are a pet store that sells food and services and, even some provide veterinary care, toys, the full gamut for companion animals. If they stop selling live animals, those sales comprise less than 5% of their revenue. And
Wow.
what is also compelling is that when a pet store transitions to a humane model of sourcing animals, so working with their local rescues, working with their local shelters, people actually, um, the community gets excited and gets behind them. And so they really haven't seen any impact to making this change by you know leaving the purchasing of animals out of their business model and transitioning to a humane sourcing model where they would allow, you know, rescues and shelters to come in and showcase their available
Mhm.
animals, So now I do want to share, this is really interesting because this is something else that I found through this work that I've been doing is there are groups out there that are lobbying groups for the industry. And so when we did do the City of Easton ordinance, and because any legislation that is, being considered, it does have to have a public comment period. And so, and that's fair. That is fair. People should know what their legislators, their, municipal city councils, township board of supervisors, whomever, what they're working on and what they're doing. And so once this ordinance or bill, this proposed bill was made public, the lobbying group in particular did come out and they started really, ramping up efforts to get people that lived in Easton to implore their city council members to vote no. And so we did have to scramble. I'm just being very transparent. Like, we did have to
Well,
quickly react.
I'm wondering what their primary point was. What was their
So
counterpoint that even kind of got to ears? I'm curious about that.
so this, and then to further this point, and I'll answer that question. When we were at the public hearing for Victoria's law, which is the state level bill that would ban the sale of dogs, cats, and rabbits, they came out for that hearing as well in opposition. And it's
Right.
actually available, that the hearing is available to watch. But key points were that it reduces the choices for consumers because they won't be able to buy animals in pet stores. That was a big one. Also that it would so limit choices. It also, they said that putting pet stores out of business, and then also that it didn't address the issue of unlicensed breeders, or what they would call, and they used the term, bad actors. And so I sat there, and again, like, really trying to keep an open mind. I do have a business background as well as a healthcare background. And I was like, I do try to listen, and it's like point counterpoint. But many of their arguments, or the opposition, it doesn't hold water. It
Right.
doesn't put anybody out of business unless, and I do, again, very transparent. If a pet store sells dogs only, yes, it's going to put them out of business. Absolutely.
Right.
If they have no other, they don't have a product line, they don't sell accessories, they don't sell services, it will put them out of business. However, the majority of pet stores, they're not put out of business. It is a small percentage of the revenue comes from the sale of live animals. It really is that draw into the store. People love to bring their kids into a store and say, "Oh, look at the birds, look at the fish, look at." But the
Mhm.
reality is the majority of the revenue comes from services, from veterinary care, from the supplies for your companion animals. So that was not it was a misinformation, if you will. And I think that is about it. But it was messaging around, it's not going to do anything about unlicensed breeders or those bad actors. But what I would have said to them is, well, then we have a problem. Like, then we do have to do something about the bad actors and the
Mhm.
unlicensed breeders,
Right.
like
This is just
Philadelphia
one
did.
piece of that puzzle. This is just
Exactly.
one part of it. And
It's
and the
one
reality of it
piece.
is we have to kind of chip out away at it from all these angles.
We do, Kelly. And that's the thing. It's not going to solve all of the world problems. However, it is going to make a difference for the animals and for the consumers, the people. People don't realize when they go into a pet store, they don't realize that they are supporting a system of, sadly, cruelty and neglect. I mean, many of these
Mhm.
animals, especially your fishes, your birds, your reptiles, your amphibians, they don't even make it to the pet store. So many of them, even if they do make it, they're sick. People don't
Mhm.
realize that. They don't realize the cost of care, how much, an exotic veterinary visit is going to cost,
Mhm.
birds, how expensive they are. So, consumers are not being told the truth. Also, another piece of this that a lot of people don't realize is that many pet stores, especially for like pet stores that sell dogs or your parrots that can be tens of thousands of dollars, um, they use predatory lending. And so it's an emotional purchase. So they'll, see a puppy, they'll see a bird, it's packaged beautifully for $14,000. You'll get the parrot of your dreams in this beautiful cage and supplies. And they don't realize when they're signing on the dotted line that they're signing interest rates that are anywhere from 130% to 180%. And it's allowed in Pennsylvania, which is really sad because Pennsylvania has really strong predatory lending bills. But because these companies have figured out how to do this, like online lending, they don't sit in Pennsylvania, they can still lend to our consumers and take advantage of us. So it's not just about animal cruelty, it's about consumer protection. And it's also about protecting our ecosystem. So the pet sales ban in Easton, one of the key, aspects of it that I shared with City Council was people are releasing exotic animals, non-indigenous animals into our ecosystems.
Mhm.
There were articles just last year about mega goldfish, they're calling them. Goldfish are carp. And so people think, oh, I'll let the goldfish in in the creek. And they don't realize that those fish are going to get big. And they're, like I said, there are goldfish in our waterways that are impacting
Mhm.
our native, animals. Additionally, there's turtles. The red-eared slider is considered, even though it is indigenous to U.S., it wasn't indigenous to PA, and it's impacting our ecosystems. We have found alligators in a Bucks County lake last summer, a 4-foot
Mhm.
alligator. People don't know. And so
Mhm.
this is an opportunity for us to not only make a difference for animals, but protect Pennsylvanians and also protect Pennsylvania's ecosystems. So I'm going to stop talking because I will just keep going. As you know, Kelly,
No,
I know you don't know me
I
that well, but
no, I love it because first of all, you're clearly both passionate and well informed. And those are the kind of people that we need, lobbying for these changes. I think what's been so interesting about doing this podcast is that so many of the things that we talk about and so many of the issues that we talk about um, are so much deeper than what we see on the surface and what we know on the surface. And if we just kind of just peek a little bit behind the curtain and just just a little bit deeper, we realize that these things are so much more impactful than we give them credit for. And it's not just about um, going to a pet store and buying a bird, and why would you take that opportunity away from us? It's like, well, let's really talk about what you're doing when you're going to
yeah,
a pet store and buying a
yeah,
bird. There I had a bird sanctuary that's in central Pennsylvania on, and they had a humane case that they were dealing with where she ended up having to take in, I think, over 20 birds from a pet store in Red Lion
yep,
that was selling them,
yep,
and literally just abandoned the birds. Like
yeah,
the owner just was done, or something happened, or whatever, and now these birds were abandoned and they came to her in terrible condition.
yeah,
And so I think it's so important too, when we think about these people that are selling animals that are quote unquote, you know, protecting the breed or whatever they're giving you. If they're creating their own livelihood around this living being as being the way that they make their money and get their income, um, they're probably not as interested in that being's well-being
Yeah.
as they are in their own bottom line.
Yeah.
But it's the environmental impact is not even something that I considered, but I had the wildlife center, Humane Wildlife Rescue in from Verona on the podcast, and she talked about an exotic fox that somebody brought in that they found that was clearly not native, and I
Yeah.
don't think it survived. And she was like, this creature doesn't belong here. This creature
Yeah.
doesn't belong here. And people have to stop thinking about that emotional transaction of this thing for their kid or this fun pet or animal that they quote unquote
Yeah.
always wanted. And we really need to start thinking about the economical impact, the environmental impact, and then the well-being of the individual animals, because it's so
Yeah.
much more than our emotions.
Kelly, I couldn't have said it better. I mean, you summed it up beautifully, and it is the truth. And it is hard because, like I said, I didn't know. I did not know. I didn't realize that, my choices have an impact, and some of those impacts are not positive, and that they're lasting.
Hmm.
And so, through this work, I've realized that, there's so much that we can do, and um and we all can do it. Like, if there is an interest in people that are listening, we would love to have them join us, even if they don't agree with all of our initiatives. One of them probably will resonate with them, and they can get
Hmm.
behind that with us. Um, if you agree, like, I would love, because I know we're, really, uh, almost approaching the hour, but one of the other bills I think is so important for people to know about, and we have it under our End Animal Killing Contest. As I had shared, Pennsylvania still allows animal killing contests, and what that means is, like, they'll have contests in their local communities where, they'll give prizes for the largest animal that, was killed, or the smallest animal was killed, or the most animals that were killed. And what we see in that is, also there's in Pennsylvania allows pigeons to be used as targets. And so there are many states in the United States that, through their cruelty laws, have prohibited this type of, contest. So pigeon shooting, using pigeons as target shooting. And so we Pennsylvania has been trying to enact a pigeon um, target, ban, or using live pigeons for as targets for over 30 years. And so we have two bills now, House Bill 1097 and Senate Bill 1159, and they're ending live pigeon shoots. And Kelly, it's been over 30 years. It's introduced almost every legislative session. Nothing changes. It's so straightforward. Um, and yet we cannot get it over the finish line. And
Why do
so,
you think that is?
well, I think there's groups, such as, again, I'm going to be very honest, the National Rifle Association, they have opposed the pitch and shoot bill. And so I do think that they are a powerful group that has a lot of
Oh, yeah, that's pretty clear. Yeah.
um, and there's other groups that do come out in opposition, but I do think that the people, and most of the people that I talk to, as I shared, articles that I've read, papers that I've read, even the hunting community, as you said, it's very strong in Pennsylvania. They're
Hmm.
against it. They would be in support. They are in support of the pigeon shoot bill. So, or banning pigeon shoots. So it's just one of those things where it's going to take people power. We have to contact our legislators and tell them that this is what we want. One of our um, board members, she often says, if, animals are important to me, and as your constituent, I need animals to be important to you as my legislator. And I thought, that's something that we all have to work on. It's
Hmm.
intimidating talking to our legislators. I will agree with that. It took me a while to get comfortable. But at the end of the day, we put them in that seat. They are
Hmm.
our voice. They are working for us.
For us.
And
Hmm.
so, whether we agree or not on these particular bills, but the reality is we should all be empowered to use our voice and to use our vote for those things that are important to us. And for Pennsylvania Voters for Animals, animals are important to us. I often say that Pennsylvania Voters for Animals, um, going through the process of, getting our organization, approved, and it was a labor of love, but it's a labor of love for animals, and it's a labor of love for our Pennsylvania communities because they're hand in hand. We are all in this together. And so when something good happens, to protect animals, we're also protecting our communities because we are impacted by this. So pigeon shoots, we don't need it. It's a violent, the animals suffer terribly. We don't need this in our community. Just like we don't need to have these, puppy mills in Pennsylvania. We can do better, but it starts with each and every one of us.
So let's talk about that start. How can people get involved in your organization? How can they
So
find you guys?
thank you for that. So we have a website, www.pavotersforanimals.org. And on that website, you can sign up for alerts. You can sign up to volunteer. You can also follow us on Facebook and on Instagram. Facebook, we're Pennsylvania Voters for Animals. And then Instagram, we're PA Voters for Animals. And we really do. We encourage people to follow us and sign up for alerts. I do manage the social media, and whether good or bad, and I also do manage our website. So I'm a busy lady, but as I said, it's a labor of love. So yes, connect with us through our website, connect with us through social media. We're also, our email is info@pavotersforanimals.org. And no surprise, I manage our email as well. But we also are, we do table at different events. Across Pennsylvania, and our goal is to have representation all across Pennsylvania. So I'm so excited to learn that you were in Western PA, because that's an area where we definitely need to grow, and Central PA as well. Well, actually, across PA. Who am I kidding? But we welcome every. We always say we're nonpartisan, but if care about animals, if one of our or all of our initiatives resonate with you, you have a seat at our table. So we welcome everyone. And we do think that together we're going to be able to make some changes. So yeah, if you sign up for alerts, you'll see the events that we will be attending. If you have any ideas, of events that are coming up, we'd love to hear. As we get more and more people out in Western PA, we'll be able to table out there. But we still have our Voice for Animal webinars that are open to everyone. And we just welcome anybody to our table.
Well, I cannot thank you enough for all the work that you're doing. And you and I are going to be talking about what I can do. So just be prepared for that
Oh,
email
that's great.
to head your way, because I already have some ideas.
Oh,
Um, but I want to take this opportunity now, because you also do volunteer with an organization, with a
yep,
rescue, and you have brought to the table today's foster spotlight.
yep.
And so I am going to go ahead and I am going to share my screen, so anyone that is following along on YouTube is going to be able to see this puppy, because boy, is this a cute dog. So on my screen right now, for those that are listening along in their car or while they're cleaning, we have Huey. And wow, is this a cute freaking dog? So tell us all about Huey and where people can find Huey.
So Huey, it was rescued by Finding Shelter Animal Rescue. So they are a 501c3 nonprofit, no-kill volunteer supported animal rescue. And it's all foster based, but they are located in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. Huey is, as you can see, he's a little 8-month-old miniature dachshund. And Huey was rescued from a Pennsylvania puppy mill. Finding Shelter Animal Rescue, they are incredible. I have been volunteering for them for a number of years, and they do amazing work. And a lot of their available rescues do come from Pennsylvania puppy mills. So, the mom dogs, the dad dogs, the puppies that can't sell. And Huey actually was surrendered. No money is ever exchanged for these dogs. The puppy mill operators have a relationship, like a working relationship with members of Finding Rescue. No money's ever exchanged, but they do know that they can call Finding Shelter, and Finding Shelter will find loving homes for these animals. Huey did not sell fast enough, and so that he got too big and he was no longer sellable. So, thankfully for Finding Shelter Rescue, um, they were called and they answered the call. And so Huey is a sweet, happy, very loving dog who just needs careful introductions to other dogs. He prefers Doxy friends over any other type. And this is notable. Dachshunds are clan dogs, and he is true to his breed. And we also have to remember he's a puppy. So he's
Yeah.
extremely smart and has tons of personality, and he does have some manners to learn, but he is treat and praise motivated. Huey is loving and fun and will make an experienced owner with a secured fence yard attached to a home very happy. And so if anyone's interested, they can visit Finding Shelter's website. I have it on the little slide here, and fill out the adoption form. Finding Shelter is absolutely so wonderful because they take pride in finding the right home with the right family for the right animal. And
So
Huey,
here's what I want to describe about Huey, because I am a sucker for like a wiry terrier face. And Huey is, first of all, black and tan. For those that can't see, he's got a black eyes, black ears, but he has straight up like two brown eyebrows and then a brown snout. And he's not like a smooth, short-haired dachshund like you're kind of used to seeing and like you think of. But he's also not like a long-haired dachshund. He literally looks like a terrier and a dachshund got together, because he has that like wiry terrier face. I will put his link in the show notes, as I always do for our foster spotlights. I'll share him on the Instagram page. And if you are in Pennsylvania or if you're near Montgomery County or willing to go to Montgomery County, depending on what their adoption radius is, make sure that you're taking a look and checking out Huey, especially if you're a dachshund lover, because he has that like very like prominent, like I call it the duck feet where they like point out of dachshunds. And he is a very, very cute dog. So thank you so much for bringing Huey to our attention.
Aw.
And thank you so much for all the work that you're doing and for taking an hour out of your incredibly busy, passionate life to talk to us and talk to us about PA Voters for Animals. It's really been an eye-opening experience. I hope after the midterms you come on again and we can talk a little bit about some of the election results.
I would love to, Kelly. I absolutely would. And I should say, we are always here for everyone, and we do have such a great group. But I am so grateful for this opportunity. I'm so grateful to your listeners as well. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And so just to remind everybody, you can follow the podcast on Instagram at the Foster Files Podcast. If you think there's somebody like Suzanne that I should be talking to, please send me an email at the fosterfilespodcast@gmail.com. But Suzanne, thank you so much for your time. Guys, I'm going to link her website in the show notes. Make sure that you're checking out Pennsylvania Voters for Animals. And if you're not in the state of Pennsylvania and you are interested in getting involved in an organization like this, check out like animal legislative organizations, animal lobbying in your state. And honestly, it's probably going to come up pretty easily for you and you'll find an organization just like Suzanne's. But if you don't know of one, email me. I'll help you find one. Email Suzanne. We'll help get you connected with somebody in your
Yeah.
state.
Or
But
start
thank you
one.
so much. Go ahead. Or start one. Yes. Or get off your booty and start one. But thank you so much for your time today. And to all the listeners out there, please remember to be kind to yourselves and be kind to animals.